2,791. That's the number of cup races run in NASCAR history, and some drivers are fortunate enough to win on their very first try, but others have to wait years before experiencing victory lane. And that doesn't even mention the ones that make hundreds of starts but never win at all. So in this video, we're going to figure out just how long it takes to win in NASCAR. And for Shane Van Gisbergen, it wasn't long, because he won in his very first start. It was impressive for an Australian supercar driver to come into a brand new sport and dominate a race, but what arguably helped him was that the race took place on a brand new track, the Chicago Street Course. No Cup drivers had ever turned a lap here, and that slightly evened out the playing field. But in order to understand how crazy this is, you need to know that only 7 drivers have ever done this in NASCAR history. And you know what else is crazy? I got a sponsor, which means I can feel like I'm a NASCAR driver for at least a couple of days. Raycon sent me their green everyday earbuds and this Ocean Waves case to go with it. And you know the first thing I used them for? To listen to the GOAT of NASCAR, Carl Edwards. I gotta admit, he was sounding pretty crisp on the Dale Jr. download last week. These Raycon earbuds have premium audio quality, and they're great to use while listening to music or YouTube videos, which I think might apply to you because you're watching a YouTube video right now. With active noise cancellation, I can throw these earbuds in and watch Carl Edwards highlights all day every day with no distractions. And their newest model has a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity. Wait, a 32-hour battery life? Okay, this is not a joke anymore, bro. But these are not the earbuds I use every day. I like that they don't fall out and you can swap out the gel tips to fit your ear size. So go to buyraycon.com/gator to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon. But it's time to get back to the second driver in today's video, Jamie McMurray, who won in his second ever NASCAR start. His path was a little bit different because he stepped into a ride that Sterling Marlin had won with 2 times earlier in the season. When Marlin got injured with a broken bone, McMurray had to fill in, and this situation seems like the most realistic way to get a very early Cup win, because before McMurray, there had been no second start Cup winners since 1960. And Kevin Harvick got his first win in a very similar way, because it took him just 3 tries. And it definitely helped that his car was Dale Earnhardt's former ride, just with a different car number on it. Usually any driver that wins this early into their career is just like an anomaly. They'll get like 1 or 2 wins, but never visit victory lane again. But Harvick is by far one of the most successful drivers early on in this video. He won a total of 58 times and eventually won the 2014 championship. And next is another NASCAR Cup champion, Brad Keselowski, who won in his 5th ever Cup race. He was making random starts throughout the 2009 season with whoever would give him a chance, some with Hendrick Motorsports, Team Penske, and when he finally won, it was with Phoenix Racing. The win came at Talladega, which is known for being a wild card track, but Brad proved it wasn't a fluke by winning the championship in 2012. And the next driver won in just 8 starts. It was actually the guy who took over for Brad Keselowski, Austin Cindric. See, Brad wanted to leave and race for a team that he would co-own. So the challenge was going to be to get Austin Cindric up to speed with his teammates. But that actually wasn't much of a challenge, because while it was his 8th Cup race ever, it was his first in Keselowski's number 2 car, and a Daytona 500 at that. And you probably know of this next NASCAR driver who took just 12 starts to get a win, Dale Earnhardt Jr. He was already really popular for obvious reasons, and fans figured it wouldn't take him long to start winning. So when he won the 2000 DirecTV 500 at Texas, fans lined up against the fence to see him celebrate, where he opted not to do a burnout, and instead went right to victory lane, where his number 1 fan was waiting for him.
And waiting on him along with Dale Earnhardt is Ken Squire. His dad is here first. What a moment.
And at 13 starts is one of the best drivers in NASCAR history, Jimmie Johnson. If you're going to win 7 championships in your career, you better start winning early. So while he won in his 13th ever start, he also won in his 16th start, his 31st start, and well, you get the idea. But all these drivers that I'm mentioning are just known winners. But at 15 starts, I'm going to talk about a driver that didn't win very often, Morgan Shepherd. So obviously he won 1 time in his first 15 races, but in his next 500 Cup races, he only won 3 times, which makes this a little bit rare if you think about it. It took Dale Earnhardt 16 races before getting his first Cup win. His NASCAR resume stacks up a lot better than his son's, but in terms of how quickly it took each Earnhardt to win, I guess Junior hasn't beaten that category. And at 17 starts, you'll find my personal GOAT, Carl Edwards. And yeah, he cut his career a little bit short, but had he continued, I project he would have won around 3 cup races per year with JGR. So while the stats say he only won 28 races, I wouldn't be surprised if he got 40 plus in a full career. And there's a surprising driver that shares this same spot with him. It's Juan Pablo Montoya. But now we're entering a range that is a great indicator on whether you'll have a successful career or not, because NASCAR champions like Matt Kenseth, Joey Logano, Tony Stewart, and Bobby Allison all got wins before race number 30. But just because you don't win this early on doesn't mean you can't become a star later, which you'll actually see by some of the surprise drivers way later in this video. So David Pearson and Kyle Busch actually share the 31 race mark, and Richard Petty is only a little bit later at 35. Between the three of them, there are 14 Cup Series championships. And fun fact, Petty shares the 35 spot with Ryan Newman, but earned 11 times as many wins. Christopher Bell won 3 of his first 4 races in the 2025 season, but from the start of his career until his first win, 38 races passed by. And then you have Chase Briscoe, who won his 40th race. At the time of recording this video, he wins 1 race for every 75 starts on average. But now that he's with Joe Gibbs Racing, I expect the win frequency to change up quite a bit. And every NASCAR fan knows Jeff Gordon ran the iconic 24. If you flip that number backwards, you get the race number where he earned his first win. In the next 20 years, he'd win 92 more times. And had the back half of his career looked like the first half, he may have been the undisputed GOAT of the sport. Even with the struggles, he won about 1 in every 8 races he entered, which is insanely impressive. Kurt Busch didn't win until start number 48, and for Darrell Waltrip, it was start 50. Both of them combined have 118 wins and 4 championships, proving that it's never too late to start winning. And our next champion on the list is Martin Truex Jr. He won his 58th ever race, which was at Dover, but this could have looked a lot different. This first win came in 2007, and he didn't win again until 2013. Not to discredit his first win, but if we ignored it and focused on his second win, it would have taken him 277 races instead. And it only took 3 drivers longer than that, which we'll speak of later in this video. This next range is the sweet spot for a lot of NASCAR champions, races 65 to 85. It begins with Benny Parsons. He won the 1973 championship and won his 66th ever start. Next is Ryan Blaney. He won race number 68 with the Wood brothers. Eventually he moved to Team Penske and became much more successful. Then we look at 72 races, equaling about 2 full-time seasons. This is how long it took Rusty Wallace. At 74 is Bobby Labonte, and then there's Cale Yarborough, who raced in 78 events before finishing first. And oddly enough, that's still less races than the 83 he won throughout his career. And then it took Alan Kulwicki 85. So I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of starts. So is it possible to still be considered a good driver once we start reaching the 100 race mark? Well, the short answer is yes, because at 98 and 99, you pretty much have the entire Hendrick Motorsports roster. William Byron took 98 races. Since then, he's won 2 Daytona 500s. His teammates Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson both had to run 99 races before winning a single one. And then they won back-to-back championships in 2020 and 2021. And the one Hendrick driver I didn't mention? Well, it took him even longer. But before we get to him, we need to mention Marcus Ambrose and Regan Smith. It took them both 105 races, and those wins both happened in 2011. Mark Martin is one of the greatest non-champions of the sport, and he had to complete 113 before reaching victory lane. Like Chase Elliott, it took Bill Elliott a pretty long time too. He made 116 starts, but he too has exactly 1 championship on his resume. Then it's Ross Chastain at 121 starts. This seems like a lot more than it should be. And that's because he was on a backmarker team for the first few seasons of his career. Then he upgraded to Chip Ganassi Racing, but still didn't have the winning speed. And when he joined Trackhouse, he won pretty much immediately. The last championship driver I'll be speaking of today is Dale Jarrett. He had to make 129 starts, which is over 3 seasons worth of racing. And technically, he started racing in Cup in the 80s, where the seasons were 29 races long, so it really equals out to about 4 seasons. And if it takes you longer than this to win a NASCAR, you're cooked. Because no driver has won after race number 129 and went on to win a championship. So now there's a list of active Cup drivers to speak of. At 133 races, there's Austin Dillon. At 134, the final Hendrick teammate, Alex Bowman. At 143, it's Bubba Wallace who won this rain-shortened race at Talladega. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was another Talladega winner who broke into the win column on race 158. You may be surprised to find that Ricky Craven took 174 races to win, but it's not the win you're thinking of. This iconic iconic photo finish wasn't his first, it was his last, because he only ever won 2 races, where the first one happened in 2001 at Martinsville. And I was also surprised to hear that AJ Allmendinger didn't win until start number 213. Now we're getting into some rare territory. It took Sterling Marlin 279 races just to win 1. He started a race in 17 different seasons before winning the Daytona 500. And the second to last driver still races in NASCAR to this day, Michael McDowell, at 358 races. Fortunately for him, only 95 more races had to pass before he would win again. And the driver that took the longest to win a race in NASCAR history is Michael Waltrip, because he had to wait until his 463rd ever start. From the day of his first race until his 2001 Daytona win, a whopping 5,747 days had passed. And that equals out to be 15 years and 8 months.
Now let me ask you a question, Daryl. How much better does 1 for 463 sound than 0 for 462? That ain't nothing.
This is a NASCAR record that will most likely never be broken, because 463 races is an entire career for some drivers. And that's not to mention, you're most likely not even going to stay in NASCAR for that long if you can't win. But just for fun, I wanted to know if anyone's actually close to passing Mikey. And the short answer is not really, because Ty Dillon is the next driver in line, and he still needs to complete 215 races without winning to have a chance of passing Michael Waltrip. That amounts to 6 full-time seasons, not to mention that he'd still need to win after that. But I see this as an opportunity. I've dropped a comment under this video trying to predict the race where Ty Dillon gets his first win. If in over 6 years from now he's able to win, I think it would be really cool to pin the comment of the first person who's able to get it right. So leave a prediction down below. And huge thanks to these legends who made this video so much easier. I referenced their work a ton, and it was a much better time than gathering all this data myself from Racing Reference. I loved making this video, and if you loved watching it, consider subscribing. I'll see y'all next time.